Alright, YouTube, so we are back, of course, talking about some, I guess, Square Enix news, technically. We're here to talk about some trademarks again. Now, I'll tell you right out the gate that these trademarks that we're looking at aren't directly about Remake and probably aren't about Remake at all. They seem to be about Final Fantasy XIV, but I still want to discuss them. And why I say it seems to be about Final Fantasy XIV is that these trademarks were filed last year in October in Japan, but here recently, at the end of January, they got filed in many other countries. And we have a Final Fantasy XIV event happening in just a couple of days. So a lot of people are thinking that the Forspoken trademark and the Heroes Bonds trademark has something to do with Final Fantasy XIV. And since there's two of them, I'm assuming if they are related to Final Fantasy XIV, that maybe with this event we're getting in a couple of days, this reveal, they're going to maybe show like two DLCs, one that's coming out relatively soon, potentially, and one that's coming out sometime down the line, maybe later this year. Now, we are not a Final Fantasy XIV channel, obviously. I actually do really enjoy the game. There's a free trial you can do up to like a certain level, but at one point there's like some sort of special edition you could download that is like the free trial, but also came with like some extra like early DLC, like Heaven's Ward and some other stuff, or something like that. And that's what I have, and I used to play the shit out of it. I probably have like at least several tens of hours, like 30, 40, 50, 60 hours or something into the game. Like I played the shit out of it, just never completed it, and I don't play it anymore. But part of why I wanted to cover this was, for one, these were Square Enix related trademarks that I just wasn't aware of. When these happened last year in October, never heard anything about it. Mostly because I searched for Remake related stuff and these don't seem to pertain to Remake. But some of the other reasons why I wanted to discuss this is, for one, there were some trademarks recently that we've talked about quite a bit that are definitely in regards to Remake or something FF7 related. But also that it does seem like Square Enix is gearing up for some big reveals within February. Obviously, we have the Final Fantasy XIV event happening in a couple of days on Friday, like I mentioned previously a few times. But if you hop back to last month, whenever Nobtra was talking about things happening with Square Enix, they actually mentioned expansions, plural, for Final Fantasy XIV, and then we have these two trademarks. And with another post, they claimed that we'd be getting the Final Fantasy VII Remake PS5 port and the Life is Strange 3 reveal sometime within February, or at least that's what they think will happen. Also turns out that Nier Reincarnation, which is a mobile game for the Nier franchise, is coming out later this month, and just the other day we had like a live stream for the game, and there's also like the opening movie was released online by Square Enix, so again, big reveals for that franchise. And then on top of all the things that we just discussed, we know that coming up on February 13th is that Final Fantasy VII Remake Orchestra live stream. It's supposed to be an in-person concert. It got canceled because of COVID. It's not going to be a live stream. There's going to be some guests, two of them being composers, one of them being Yoshinori Kitase. They're going to still be there, but in video format. So the other two guests being there makes a lot of sense. They're music composers for Square Enix. I'm assuming they worked on Remake. It's a musical event. It all adds up. But Kitase being there is a bit strange, being that he is just a producer on the game. Obviously, he's kind of, as I've said kind of recently, sort of like the face of Square Enix. Like, he's kind of the guy you see at all these events doing interviews and things. He's always the kind of go-to. Kitase's going to be here. Kitase's going to be there. And with Square Enix having a history of revealing trailers at these orchestra events, and Kitase being at this specific one, it just makes a lot of people think that something's going to be shown there. There's just a lot happening in February for Square Enix. We had several trademarks go public within January. 3 of them were in regards to FF7/Remake. There's other 2 that seem to be in regards to Final Fantasy XIV. You have the upcoming Final Fantasy XIV live stream. You had the January rumors of a Final Fantasy VII Remake PS5 port. Also, Life is Strange 3 reveal happening in February. You have the Orchestra event coming up for Remake. And then, of course, the Nier Reincarnation release happening later on in February. Like, there's just so much going on in February for Square Enix. And something else I wanted to point out, and this is tinfoil hat territory, so bear with me on this, but the trademarks for Final Fantasy XIV were filed in October. What is 4 months after October? February, right? November, December, January, February. The trademarks for Remake were filed in December. What is 4 months after December? April. January, February, March, April. What is April in regards to Remake? The release month. It is also when the exclusivity ends for Remake. I just thought it was a weird coincidence. We've talked a lot about the exclusivity for Remake ending after a year, the lack of any sort of like updates or DLC for the game, how Kingdom Hearts 3 didn't get its first piece of DLC until almost exactly a year after release. And we've also talked about the exclusivity ending and the game coming to other platforms, but potentially launching with some sort of like expansion or DLC for the game to kind of help boost the sales for the game on those platforms. And everything just seems to be pointing in that direction. But my dudes, that is pretty much the video, so I want to pass off to you guys in the comment section. For starters, we don't really talk about anything else really under the Square Enix umbrella too often, mostly just the Final Fantasy series. But are you into Final Fantasy XIV? Are you looking forward to Nier Reincarnation? Are you interested in a Life is Strange 3 reveal? And do you think that a Heroes Bond and or Forspoken are some sort of expansion pack for Final Fantasy XIV? From what I could tell online, they get a lot of updates, obviously, because it's MMO, but their big expansion packs come out every 2 years, it seems like. The last one was Shadowbringers in 2019. We are in 2021, so there's definitely some sort of expansion happening at some point. I just hope going forward that we get some real information in regards to Remake, whether it's Part 1, Part 2, the franchise itself, something. Because since release, they haven't really talked about the game. Like, they released the game in April of last year, and have realistically been silent. We've done a lot of videos since release, pretty much every other day upload since the release of the game. But we're coming up on the game being a year old, and there was never any update for the game, and they've been pretty much silent since release. We still don't know how many parts there's going to be. People are still wondering if there's going to be any sort of data transfer between Part 1 and Part 2. We don't know if there's going to be any DLC for the game. Like, they just need to talk about it soon, man. By the way, my dudes, that is the video. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. What's up with more Square Enix / Final Fantasy VII Remake / Final Fantasy XIV. Sometimes news. What the fuck? Turn on my notifications. Follow me on Twitter, dashingdavidyt, and my Discord. Links to my social networks are in the description and in the outro. Later, guys.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Logain, or leave it like Cobain.